Up and down the NBA draft big board, the Memphis Grizzlies are meeting with multiple prospects, and that is absolutely what the Memphis Grizzlies should be doing in the circumstances that they find themselves in. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax, your host for this edition of the show. DeMichael Cole traveling home to Memphis from Chicago from that NBA draft combine. But don't you worry, we have dispatches from DeMichael to discuss on this episode of the show. Very excited to do so. We're not just going to talk about this various wide net that the Memphis Grizzlies front office is casting as they conduct interviews at the NBA Draft Combine. We're also going to talk about what one of those top prospects said as part of the interview process that might scare you off. It certainly makes me a little bit nervous. And the idea, there's been, discussions about the Utah Jazz potentially trying to make a trade with the Washington Wizards to move up a pick to number 1 overall. Should the Grizzlies get involved in that conversation? I'm going to talk about all of that on this edition of the show. But first, here is a list from the incomparable DeMichael Cole, my co-host and Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. Again, he was there on the ground in Chicago. Players that have interviewed with the Memphis Grizzlies as of this recording at the draft combine. Nate Ament, forward from Tennessee, Cam Boozer from Duke, Jayton Quintons of Kentucky, Dibansta of BYU, Yaxel from Michigan, Darryn Peterson from Kansas, Sanak Jr. from Houston, Amari Allen from Alabama, Acuff Jr. from Arkansas, LeBaron Philon from Alabama, and then Alan Graves from Santa Clara. So a lot of the time yesterday, or the last couple of days, by the Memphis Grizzlies front office was spent conducting interviews with prospects. A lot of the conversations, per DeMichael Cole, have centered on life away from basketball, organizations aiming to better understand them as people beyond their on-court skill sets. I'm going to stop right there and say absolutely yes. The Memphis Grizzlies should absolutely be interested in the character of these young people, what their interests are outside of the court. We're not looking for a Michael Jordan semi-sociopathic relationship here with the game of basketball. We don't need a Kobe Bryant level of intensity. We just need to make sure that this guy, as best as you can in a short interview, marrying it with conversations you have with other people in the lives of these prospects, the game tape that you watch and see. Obviously, a lot of these guys will come to Memphis for workouts and further meetings in the 39 or so days between now and the NBA draft. You want to get to know these guys as best you can so that you can make the most informed opinion about the investment of this number 3 overall pick that you are going to be making and whoever it is there on the board for you when you make that selection. It's not just about how you bounce the ball and how you defend and how you put it in the tin. It's also about how you're going to fit the culture of whatever organization you're joining. All right. This is an eclectic group. Okay. Amari Allen, for example, from Alabama. He's projected as a late first, early second round choice, according to Tankathon, my personal favorite of the websites that cover the NBA draft. Amari Allen is currently mocked to go number 29 overall to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Obviously, the Grizzlies pick at number 32. So could Memphis potentially be in the mix for Allen? Yes. Could Memphis at number 16 potentially be in the mix for a Sanak from Houston or a Steinbach from Washington? Yes. Could Memphis potentially, of course, be in the mix for a Darryn Peterson, a Cameron Boozer? Yes. Darius Acuff Jr., Nate Ament, Yaxel from Michigan? Yes. Up and down this big board, the Grizzlies are talking to everybody. It's not just with a focus on the number 3 overall pick. And that's conducting good business, dear listener, dear viewer. That is doing the NBA draft combine the way that you're supposed to do it. I feel even more confident in the Memphis Grizzlies front office now than that I know for sure that they're not just focused on this top pick in this draft. Because don't get me wrong, that's obviously the most important one. But one of the reasons it's the most important one is the next one. That's the next move. There's going to be moves that follow it. Say it is Cam Boozer that's the number 3 pick in the draft. If that's the case, you probably don't need a big at number 16. Maybe you try to trade up to get a guard. Maybe you try to trade up to get a wing. Maybe you stay put at number 16. Or maybe you decide to trade back from 16. Where are you going to trade to? Who are some guys that you might target in the early 20s, mid-20s? Should we really be surprised that the Grizzlies are interacting with guys that are all over this mock draft? Because Memphis could select all over this mock draft. We have no idea when the mock becomes reality where the Grizzlies are actually going to line up on draft night and make their selections. We're pretty confident they're picking at number 3. That could change. We'll talk about that later on in the show. I am pretty confident that the Memphis Grizzlies will be picking at the number 3 overall selection. But Memphis has traded up or made some sort of deal in every draft that Zach Kleiman has been responsible for as the GM of the Memphis Grizzlies. Are we really going to expect him to sit on his hands now, especially when Memphis has 14 contracts already under contract going into next year? There's maneuvering and shaking that can be done to make that change. But I highly doubt that the Memphis Grizzlies are picking at 13, then 16, then 32. There's going to be some maneuvering there. And that's why you have to talk to all of these guys. And it's also important to pick the brains of all of these different players, all of these different agents. It's networking, baby. It's making connections. It's building relationships. It's getting to know players and representation in multiple ways through multiple channels. Because again, you are making a pretty significant decision for the future of your franchise. When you are picking in the top 3 of an NBA draft, the top 3 of any draft, that is a really important position to be in terms of the direction in which your team is going to go. That player should be the face of an era. Joe Morant was the face of an era. He was the number 2 overall pick in 2019. Doesn't always work out that way, but that is the goal of the structure of the NBA draft. To give teams like the Memphis Grizzlies a crack at that type of talent, where in the free agency market, or if there was no draft and every player was able to enter however they saw fit, they may not choose the Memphis Grizzlies for a variety of reasons. In this draft process, the Grizzlies have their pick of whoever will be on the board. And there's a lot of variance that could occur, especially once you get past number 3 and you get into number 16, you get into number 32. So Memphis may have a plan. They may have an idea of what they're going to do at number 3 overall, but you can't be sure of what Washington's going to do. You can't be sure of what Utah is going to do. That's what happens when there's so many top-end talents at the top of the board. We keep talking about Cam Boozer falling to Memphis at number 3. When you look at the athletics that he showed in the combine, combine that with the tape and the statistical analysis, it's really hard to argue that Cam Boozer isn't the best prospect in this draft. He may not be the shiniest star. He may not be the brightest, biggest toy. But Cam Boozer can go. If Cam Boozer is there at 3, Memphis should be thrilled. If AJ Dibansta is there at 3, Memphis should be thrilled. If Darryn Peterson, we're going to talk more about here next on Locked On Grizzlies, is there at 3, I still think Memphis should be thrilled. But after what he said at the Combine in an interview, I'm a little bit nervous about that prospect. There are so many different ways that the Grizzlies can take this draft. It is arguably the most important draft in franchise history because of how tone-setting it can be for the next 5 to 7 years of the franchise's organizational history. You can't take those decisions lightly. You need to get as much intel on multiple prospects. You need to get as much intel on how people perceive your organization from the outside. That's another valuable piece of these conversations. There's so much that goes into these interviews. It's wonderful to hear and see that the Memphis Grizzlies are taking full advantage of them. Let me know on X, at Joe Mullinax. Hit me up in the comments. How are you feeling about who has been interviewed by Memphis? Who would you like to see the Grizzlies interview? Caleb Wilson, conspicuous by his absence so far, but it is believed that Memphis will talk to Wilson before the combine concludes. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, Darryn Peterson thinks he's a point guard. Is he? Makes me a little nervous. Talk about it next. Stick around. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy and Fruity Rainbow. Yum, 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 yum. If you have a sweet tooth like I do, nom, 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 you know how tough it is to find that perfect treat without all the sugar. That's why the Fruity Rainbow 5 Hour Energy Shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. Fruity Rainbow 5 Hour Energy Shots treat your taste buds to an explosion of fruity flavor with a tasty caffeine kick. It's a quick, easy way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. A zero sugar treat that is sweet tooth approved. That is exactly what Fruity Rainbow is. I love how convenient it is as well. A small portable shot you can grab whenever you need a little pick-me-up. It's become my personal go-to when I want something sweet without going too overboard. Get candy-flavored chaos with Fruity Rainbow 5 Hour Energy Shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or at Amazon. Go and check them out today. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies also brought to you by Wayfair. You know, your outdoor space, it should feel like you, right? It's one of those spots that should get fixed up more consistently than it does, but you never quite get around to it, right? I know that's how it is at my house. That's where Wayfair comes in. They make it easy to find pieces that match the vibe that you wanted. I love how easy it is. You can filter by budget, filter by style. You can find exactly what fits your space and exactly what fits your price point. And they have everything in one spot. Seating, decor, lighting, even outdoor rugs. And with thousands of verified reviews, you can feel confident in whatever it is that you're getting. Now the space actually feels put together, somewhere that you actually want to sit, relax, and spend some time. Get prepped for patio season for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Make sure you're hanging out with us as a member of the Everydayer Club. Get Locked On Grizzlies ad-free with the Everydayer Club. Plus, members-only Discord access. Join us at lockedongrizzlies.supercast.com. You can also join us over at lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. Also from DeMichael Cole's piece over the Commercial Appeal. And if you are not subscribed to the Commercial Appeal, if you're not following DeMichael Cole on X at DeMichael C, following his work at the CA, what exactly are you doing? You're not as smart about the Memphis Grizzlies as you could be. So fix that. Let's get that together here, okay? Another note from DeMichael's notebook, his dispatch from the NBA Draft Combine. Darryn Peterson wants to play the point guard position. Darryn Peterson views himself as a point guard in the NBA. He explained that his lone season at Kansas featured more off-ball responsibilities than he is accustomed to because of cramping and injury issues. Important to point out that Joe Morant still is on the Memphis Grizzlies roster, but it is widely expected that trade opportunities will continue to be explored. If Peterson is there at 3, which we've talked about here on this podcast before, I talked about it with Gabe Kuhn over on 92.9 ESPN on Wednesday, he could emerge, Peterson, as a long-term option in the backcourt. It'll be easy for me to make plays for all my teammates with all the gravity I think I might get at the next level, Peterson said. Whew. I don't know about you, but this made me nervous. And I am nervous because I do not see Darryn Peterson as a point guard at the next level. I see Darryn Peterson as a bucket at the next level. I see Darryn Peterson as an NBA scorer. I see Darryn Peterson as somebody who can be a good two-way player in the National Basketball Association. I think his athleticism, his movement, his lateral quickness, I think that he's explosive enough that he can be an impact player offensively and defensively. I think he's a much better offensive player, but I don't think Peterson is going to get abused on the defensive end by any stretch of the imagination. I am nervous about what Darryn Peterson said because through the lens of a shooting guard, shooting 38% from 3 on almost 7 attempts a game, sign me up. That sounds great. 82.6% free throw percentage. Awesome. 1.4 steals per game. Heck yeah. Just 29 minutes played. Love that. 1.6 assists per game at Kansas. That averages out per 36 minutes to 2 assists per game. Darryn Peterson might think he's a point guard. I'm not so sure. dear listener, dear viewer, I don't know after watching tape that is the best use of DP. Now, he may want the ball in his hands, and don't get it twisted. Where I agree with DeMichael Cole, why I, a couple of days ago here on Locked On Grizzlies, said that I would go Darryn Peterson over Caleb Wilson if Cam Boozer is off the board, is because I do want the ball in Darryn Peterson's hands in those most significant moments, because he's that Anthony Edwards type. He's that guy that's got that offensive, in particular, dog in him that's going to go and win you basketball games. I see that vision that DeMichael Cole talks about so much when I look at Darryn Peterson. I do not see elite offensive facilitation. And the numbers don't see it either. Per Tankathon and their analysis, his biggest weaknesses this past season at Kansas: assist percentage compared to usage, assist to turnover ratio. Those are his three weaknesses in his game, statistically speaking, from his season at Kansas. And this dude sees himself as a point guard first. Not sure I agree. And yeah, the Memphis Grizzlies very well could be in the market for a point guard, right? And yes, it would be nice to have a 6'6" point guard for once. Not have somebody undersized. Love Mike Conley, undersized. Love John Morant, undersized, at least comparatively speaking to the bigger model of guards that are dominating the NBA playoffs as we speak. Not all of the teams, but a lot of them have bigger lead guards. They just do. So, would it be nice to have a 6'6" point guard? Yeah, of course it would. I think that's a lovely idea. I don't know if Darryn Peterson's that guy, man. I don't know if he is. He has so much capacity to score the ball in a variety of ways. He is explosive with the ball in his hands, but he's also crafty. He's shifty. He understands how to get to his spot, and he understands how to create room for himself to get the ball in the hoop in the best way that he can, regardless of what any opposing defensive coverage throws at him. There's so much value to that in that isolation, one-on-one. I need to score to get my team a tie, a win, closer in a pivotal moment, whatever the situational possibility is. I see Darryn Peterson being a guy that can help Memphis get over the top in those moments. But when I watch Darryn Peterson tape, I don't necessarily see a guy that's going to hit a Euro step, crossover, come off of a screen, and be that elite dribble penetration kick-out passer. I don't see it. And maybe he didn't get enough opportunity at Kansas to be that guy. Maybe he didn't. Maybe because the Jayhawks needed him to be something more. Maybe because of the cramping issues. All of the other things that were concerns with him, for whatever reason, that maybe have him not being in the conversation for number one overall. Because if you rewind to the beginning of the college basketball season, it was just widely assumed that Peterson was going to be the number one pick in this draft. No, not anymore. Maybe he's number two, maybe, but he could fall to number three given how well Boozer has been doing and how well he played in college. And then to come out and say that you are a certain thing, obviously we're talking about a ton of money here. We're talking about a lot of power and influential people and all those sorts of things. But I do think we have to keep in mind sometimes that this is a game. This is a sport that children play, young adults play. As a coach, when you ask a player what position they want to play, what you want to hear in return, more often than not, even with multimillionaires, is whatever is best for the team. Maybe Darryn Peterson can be a point guard. Maybe that's possible. Maybe Memphis agrees with DP. And there's a developmental plan in place to help him get to that space. But I don't know how you can connect watching him at Kansas this past year, the most recent relevant tape that we have, and connect that to him as a lead point guard as his main position in the National Basketball Association. I think he's a combo guard. He's a secondary facilitator. But I think he needs a primary point guard next to him to maximize what he can be as that scoring hub in an NBA setting. And the fact that he may not necessarily see things that way himself, if it comes down to Peterson versus Wilson at number 3, if Boozer's off the board, I said I'd take Peterson a couple of days ago, and I still think that's the way I'm leaning. ain't quite the home run that it was before I heard this. I'm going to be honest with you. Am I overreacting? Let me know on X at Joe Mullinax. Hit me up in the comments. Darryn Peterson thinks he's a point guard. Does that scare you off when it comes to possibilities with him in Memphis with the Grizzlies? When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, closing out this edition of the show, talking about an idea of trading up from number 3 to get who you want. What do you think? I'll give you a clue as to what I think when we come back. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by KALSHI. The playoffs are here. It's the most electric time in basketball on KALSHI. You can trade every single playoff game, every series, the conference finals, and the championship itself. You have to understand how amazing it is to be able to look at Minnesota and San Antonio, to look at Cleveland and Detroit, to look at whatever the eventual conference finals will be. The Knicks will be involved. The Thunder will be involved. To go and make these kinds of trades involving probability and payouts and all this sort of stuff, as the playoffs continue to heat up, numbers move in real time, and you can buy in or out at any time. And that's fascinating. This is different. You are trading against peers in a live market. There is no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of that position at any time. For a limited time, download the KALSHI app and use the code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10, KALSHI, KALSHI. Trade on anything. 18 over only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is also brought to you by Rocket Money. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where'd all my money go? You're not alone. I'm in the same boat. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming very quickly. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot and can help you cancel the ones that you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes spending so you can actually see where your money is going. And you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clear picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Finishing up this episode of Locked On Grizzlies, it is I, Joe Mullinax. On our next edition of the show, DeMichael Cole will be back with us. It'll be Friday. You know, we got to get down on a Friday. We have fun around here on Fridays. Looking forward to the weekend. And we're going to talk about trading back, whether it's trading back from 16 or even trading back from 3. But I wanted to, because you know how much I love trades if you're an everydayer, I wanted to jump right in and talk about trading up. Because there have been reports, not necessarily Grizzlies specific, but rumors of this Utah Jazz connection to AJ Dybantsa, how much they love AJ, obviously the BYU connection, all the things that led to AJ getting to Utah in the first place. So much of that has been connected to Jazz ownership. It was widely assumed that Dybantsa was going to be the guy that the Jazz wanted if they landed number 1. But of course, Utah did not land number 1. They landed number 2. And the Wizards have all of the cards in their hand. They get the pick of the litter in terms of this potentially legendary 2026 NBA draft class. Are the Jazz willing to give up an Ace Bailey? Are the Jazz willing to move on from multiple pieces of draft capital that they may or may not have after the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade to get to that place where they can select AJ in this draft? It's an interesting question. Are they? It wouldn't be cheap. And if the Wizards are in a place where they're still trying to accumulate future draft capital or another young player, maybe it makes sense if they don't have a favorite between Dybantsa and Peterson and Boozer. They don't have a horse in the race, right? They don't have any particular name that has been connected to them for all this time in theory or in reality or somewhere in between. So could the Wizards take advantage of that? That's where these conversation points come from. And naturally, the next team down the list is the Memphis Grizzlies. And could the Memphis Grizzlies make a trade to move up to number 2 or number 1? Say they're infatuated with Cam Boozer. They're terrified that he's not going to be there at 3. And it's not that far of a stretch to think that Zach Kleiman, who loves analytics, who also is very connected to Duke. Not a stretch to think that Kleiman would love the analytic darling player from Duke. But what if the Jazz love Boozer? They should. What if the Wizards love Boozer? They should. Are the Grizzlies willing to pay what it may cost? Multiple first-round picks, a young talent like a G.G. Jackson, like a Jalen Wells, maybe even a Cedric Coward or a Zach Edey. Are they willing to pay that price to move up in this particular draft? I'll tell you what I would say. I would say no. Because getting in the top 4 was the goal. Number 1 overall is cool, don't get me wrong. And history tells us that among these top 4, Boozer and Debansta and Peterson and Caleb Wilson, one of these guys is probably going to be a dud. Or at least not living up to the expectations at which they are selected in the draft. For every Luka Doncic, there's Marvin Bagley, right? But the reality is, I don't know that you can look at the information that we have on hand and say definitively who that guy is. I think there's one guy that's a surefire top 25 player in the NBA, regardless, maybe even starting right now, and that's Cam Boozer. But the ceiling of all of these guys, the skills that they bring to the table, the athleticism, the talent, the tools in their offensive and defensive toolkits already between the ages of 18 and 19 years old. It's impressive. I think that Memphis is good taking any of those guys. I might prefer Boozer, but if you're a Caleb Wilson stan and Zach Kleiman, it would be an upset to me, but Zach Kleiman agrees with you, I'm not going to come on here and say Zach Kleiman's an idiot for taking Caleb Wilson. If Darryn Peterson is there at 3 and the Grizzlies choose Peterson, they want to give him that chance to be the point guard. That may not be my preference. I might be nervous about that, but can you make a logical argument for that guy being the pick in that situation? Absolutely. So when you are in that catbird seat, when technically, when you think about it, depending on how the Grizzlies view Caleb Wilson, there's no decision for them to make at all. They wait for Washington and Utah to make their choice, and the Grizzlies get what's left between Debansta and Peterson and Boozer. There is no choice unless you really are that big of a believer in Caleb Wilson. And that's kind of a nice place to be. You know, you're getting somebody that a lot of folks think is going to be a damn good NBA player. And you can hold on to all the assets that you've accumulated and trade up maybe up into the lottery utilizing that 16th pick in the NBA draft. And that is going to be a focal point of our conversation on tomorrow's show. We are going to really emphasize whoever the Grizzlies take at number 3, whether it's Cam Boozer, Darryn Peterson, Caleb Wilson, assuming Debansta's gone. How that pick and how the board works out from there could directly impact how the Grizzlies utilize the resources at their disposal at 16, 32, future draft picks, even young players on the roster not named Cedric Coward and Zach Edey. I would not trade them. But they have a lot of things that they can do to go and get another pick in this NBA draft lottery. And that's when you start getting interested in point guards, perhaps. That's when you start getting interested in Zach Edey insurance if you think it's necessary, or another strong two-way wing that has a bigger frame that can play alongside Cedric Coward. That is where things get interesting to me. So would I trade up from number 3? No. Would I trade up from number 16? Absolutely. And that'll be a major focus of our Friday episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Thanks so much for being with us here on Locked On Grizzlies on this Thursday edition of the show. Wherever you're checking us out, it is much appreciated. Make sure that you are hanging out with us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, literally anywhere you get podcasts. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. Make sure that you're following Locked On Grizzlies, following me on X at Joe Mullinax. Get all of the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Grizzlies ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedongrizzlies.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we'll be sending you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen, NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA. Thanks so much for being with me today. It is much appreciated. We will catch you right back here next time. Until then, stay safe out there. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you here for our next episode of Locked On Grizzlies. See ya.